This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi. We're learning Sefer Ezra, Parakeh. Let's see again, Pasuk Yud Gimel. So, we learned that during the reign of Koresh, after he had given permission, so they interfered with the construction of the Beis HaMikdash and Yerushalayim, based on the fact that they said the Jews were not just building the Beis HaMikdash, but they're also building Yerushalayim. But then we learned in Parakeh that the construction was put to a halt until the second year of Daryavish II. At that point, Chagai and Zechariah prophesied that the Jews should go rebuild the temple. So they went without any permission. They went up again to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash without any permission. And there was a challenge placed on them by Tatnai, who asked them, "What permission do you have?" And they said, "What do you mean? Koresh gave us Rishus, and it was put to a halt, and now we are rebuilding it." So let's take a look at Pasuk Yud Aleph. Uchenema, and the following, Uchenema Piskama. They replied to us as follows. Yahasivuna Lamemar. It was brought to us as the following. Anachna hima yavdoi. Right. This is Tanai reporting to Daryavish, right? The second, right? Anachna hima yavdoi di elakashmaya. We are the servants of the God of heaven. Va'ara ubanayin baisa, and we're building the house. Dihava v'nei mikadmastana, that was built from before this. Shnin sagiyan, many years earlier. Umelach li Yisrael Rav. And there was a great king of Israel, Benahi, he built it, V'shachlele, he founded it. Lahain, therefore, right, Lahain, Rashi says, means a little bit different, but now, Mendi hargizu avasana lalakashmai, because our fathers angered the God of heaven, Yahav himai biyad Nebuchadnezzar melech Bavel kazda, he delivered the Mikdash into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Bavel. Ubaisa dinas sasre, he destroyed the temple. V'yama, and the people hagli lebavel, he exiled to Bavel. Okay, Baram. However, b'shnas chada leKoresh, in the first year of Koresh's reign, Malka di Bavel, the king of Bavel. Koresh Malka, Koresh the king, Sam Ta'im, he issued a decree, Beis Alakadina Livnei, to build this house. V'yaf Manaya, and even the vessels, Dives Alaka, of the house of God, Didava, of gold, V'chaspa, and silver, Di Nebuchadnezzar, that Nebuchadnezzar, Hanpek min Hechel de Yerushalayim. Nebuchadnezzar, we know, took out the Kalim that were in the Hechel in Yerushalayim. Vehevel imain, he brought it with him. Lehechla di Bavel, to the temple in Bavel. Hanpek himai Koresh Malka, Koresh the king took it out. Menhechla di Bavel. Vihivu l'sheish batzar, and he gave it to Sheish Batzar. Who was Sheish Batzar? Tzmachloikis. The Yalkut says Daniel. Others says Rubavel. L'sheish Batzar Shmei. Difecha Sameh, and he made him some kind of official. Va'amar lay, and he said to him, Eila, or El Manaya, these Kalim, say, carry them, Ezel Aches Himai, and go bring them up, Behechla di Yerushalayim, to the Hechla Yerushalayim, Uveselaka, and the house of God, Yisbnei Alasei, build on its place. So the simple meaning of the Psukim are that the Kalim of the Beis HaMikdash that Nebuchadnezzar took out of the Beis HaMikdash were returned by Koresh through who? Through Daniel. So what we're going to look into today, and I just want to finish the parak first, is David reminded me yesterday, so I don't have a choice. I can't say I forgot, that when in fact were all these Kalim returned? Because as we know in the Purim story, Achashverosh, when he felt his cheshbon of 70 years were over, he made a big party, right? B'shnash shalosh l'malchai asam ishteh l'chol sarav avadav chel paras madai. And what kind of kalim did he use? The kalim shainim. So he used the kalim of the Beis HaMikdash. So what do you mean he used it? But Koresh already returned them. Koresh already gave them over to Daniel to bring back to Eretz Yisrael. Now who came first? Koresh or Achashverosh? Koresh, right? Nebuchadnezzar, Evel Merodach, Belshazzar, Daryavesh the first, Koresh, Achashverosh, Daryavesh the second. So Koresh came before Achashverosh. So where did Achashverosh get these kalim from? If Koresh, according to this pasuk that we just read, already sent them back with Daniel. But let's finish the parak first. Edayin, at that point, Sheish Batzar, Daniel, Deich, this Daniel went, this Daniel, Asa, he went, Yehav, Ushaya, and he set the place, he set in place, Diveis Elakah, Di Jerusalem, for the walls of the Beis HaMikdash, Umin Adayin, and from that time on, Viad Ka'an, until now, the Jews are saying, as Tatna is reporting to Daryavesh, Misbene, the temple was built, V'lo Shlim, but it was not completed. And therefore, Uche'an, and therefore, Hein al Malkatav, if it pleases the king, Gizbakar, let it be investigated, Beves Genzaya di Malka, in the treasure houses of the king, Di Malka Sama, in other words, Yizbaka, let it be investigated, Beves Genzaya, Di Malka Sama, in the royal treasury, Di Bavel, that's in Bavel. Now the question is, what was it doing in Bavel? Because after all, who is this letter being sent to? Daryavesh. Daryavesh was the king of Persia. So what do you mean search in the treasury of Bavel? The treasury should have been in the royal capital. Where was the royal capital? In Persia, in Shushan. We know, right? The Gra we once learns that when the Megillah Esther begins, he did it in Shushan. Why did he do it in Shushan? So we learned that the Vilna Gaon learns, in the times of Achashverosh, the capital was moved from Bavel to Shushan. Because why? Because Yehudi Haya b'Shushan. Because Mordechai was already there. So Hashem said, instead of making the tzaddik who's in Shushan go to the Rasha in Bavel, have the Rasha move his capital to Shushan. And the Gemara explains why did he move it to Shushan. He wanted to make a replica of the throne of Shlomo HaMelech, and there were no workers in Bavel who could make a good enough replica, so he had to he found a good company in Shushan, and he moved the whole capital to Shushan. But that's what the Vilna Gaon says. Now, why was this?
He was one of the people who was part of the Chorah and Masger, no?
Who, Mordechai? Yeah.
So he actually, and then I think he was also one of the people who came back when Koresh gave permission.
Okay.
So he himself went out of Israel to Shushan.
Yeah, but he lived in Shushan, and therefore the Hashgacha had it that the capital should move from Bavel to Shushan instead of Mordechai. In other words, instead of the Moshiach having to go to Bavel, Hashem moved the Rasha to the Tzaddik. Now, again, the capital was in Bavel, and Achashverosh transferred the capital to Shushan. And in the transfer of moving the capital from Bavel to Shushan, Koresh's official proclamation was lost. Maybe intentionally by the people who wanted to hide the fact that Koresh gave permission for the Jews to build the Beis HaMikdash, but Koresh's proclamation was lost. Let's take a look at let's see. So they say, check the royal library. Hein Isai, Dimin Koresh Malka Sim Te'aim. If, right, what does the word Hein mean? If King Koresh decreed, Sim Te'aim, placed a decree, Lemivne Beis Elakah, to build the house of Hashem, Deich B'Yerushalayim, this house of God in Yerushalayim, Ureus Malka, and the desire of the king, Al Dina, about this matter, Yishlach Alena, please respond to us. In other words, they're asking Daryavesh. Daryavesh never gave permission for them to build a temple. The Jews on their own started building Beis HaMikdash based on the Nevuah of Chagai and Zechariah. Now they're reporting to Daryavesh. They're saying, Daryavesh, the Jews claim Koresh once gave permission, so check your royal chronicles and see if in fact this is true that Koresh gave permission. Now take a look at Rashi. Rashi on Pasuk Yud Zayin, Ucha'an v'yata im al hamelech toiv yeh hadavar yodua u'mevukar b'veis knazav shel melech asher sham bevavel. Go check the royal records in Bavel. Hein Isai im yesh ha'maisa hazeh. If this in fact happened, asher mipi koresh yatsa davar livnois bayis zeh asher b'Yushalayim. Okay, so it's very interesting. They're sending this letter to Daryavesh, and what does Daryavesh respond? Look at Pasuk Aleph, Perek Vav, Pasuk Aleph. Beidayin, at that point, Daryavesh Malka, Daryavesh the king, sum to aim, issued a decree. Uvakaru, and he investigated Beveis Sefraya, the library, the Genzaya, that was in the treasury, Mehachasin Tama Bevavel, which were stored in Bavel. What does the word Mehachasin mean? Mehachasin, we're translating to mean they were stored in Bavel. Okay, pasuk beis. V'hishtekach, and they found bi'achmesa in a pouch, bevirta in the palace, di b'madai, medinta in the province of Madai, Megillah Chada. What did they find? A scroll. V'chein ksiv b'gava dechrona, and the following was recorded on it. The following was it. So they found on a pouch. Look at Rashi, pasuk beis. V'shtakach ba'achmasa, v'nimtza michtav sham Megillah achas. They found a scroll. Sham ba'achmasa. Came pisru anshe hapisron. The translators explain that the word achmasa means shu kli ha'asoi le'igros l'gilyanim l'sfarim hamidum migezeras chamas mayim. It comes from the root of the word achmasa is a chemes, is a thermos, is a container. Bevirsa, Rashi translates in the palace that was in Madai. Others translate bevirsa means in the capital of Madai. Now, if you look in the Malbim says a very important thing. He says originally the royal city was in Bavel, and that's where all the records were, and that's where the letter that Koresh sent regarding the binyan. Like Sefer Ezra begins that Koresh sent out a letter. Nasan li Hashem. This was in Bavel, and in the days of Achashverosh, they changed the capital from Bavel to Shushan. Like the pasuk says, Al kisei malchusa asher b'Shushan habira, and then the letter was lost. Says the Malbim, this is not just it happens to be the letter was lost, but it could be Yachal Lios ki Haman o Agag Yishaya Mishnah Hevet es hamichtav Allah shel Tavis Yehudim. It could be Haman when they moved in the moving process, when they moved from Bavel to Shushan. Haman made sure that document got lost, and they could not find it in Bavel. And the Hashgachas Hashem was that they found it in Madai. Now they didn't find that letter because that letter was lost. They found a different letter that just wrote in very shorthand what was written in the original letter. Okay. Now says the Malbim, how could we say such a thing? They had chronicles in Madai? I thought we said the royal library was in Bavel. No. We see from Megillas Esther that the Medes had their own chronicles. Like it says, like we learn in the Megillah. Right? So we see they had their own chronicles. So therefore this document was found in the chronicles of Madai and Paras. Okay, and Rabbi say, let's put a hold on that because I want to show you a very important Ramban, Masechta Megillah, that discusses exactly when the Kalim were taken into exile and when the Kalim were returned. And basically, what we're going to deal with is, if we're learning now that Koresh gave Daniel the Kalim of the Beis HaMikdash to bring back to Yerushalayim, then how could Achashverosh be celebrating with the Kalim? Well, what Kalim? The Kalim already returned to Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so this is the Ramban, Masechta Megillah, Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis, hot off the press. Okay?
What Kalim is there for the produce? Wash cup?
What Kalim? Well, if I'm not mistaken, the Mishnah says in either Midos or Talmud that there are 93 Kalim. Yes. Right now, there are 93 Kalim. So they have goblets and cups and washing. So it could be Achashverosh wanted a nice big cup for his wine. So he started taking out the goblets of the Beis HaMikdash. Doesn't necessarily only mean, he took the menorah out. I mean, even the mizrakim and maybe the forks and all the other things Achashverosh also used. Right? Look, he was wearing, right? We learned last week he was wearing the big day Kohen Gadol. Yes. So okay. So let's see the Ramban. Ramban says like this. Remember, Belshazzar also did the same thing. Belshazzar made a 70-year count. And according to Belshazzar's 70-year count, the 70 years were over. And therefore he took out the Kalim of the Beis HaMikdash and he celebrated. And Rabbi, so we know what happened that night. He was murdered immediately. So the Ramban is going to have a very simple question. Achashverosh sees that obviously Belshazzar made a mistake and the Jews are going to be redeemed. Obviously they're going to be redeemed. Otherwise, how would Belshazzar be miraculously killed the night that he uses the Kalim of the Beis HaMikdash? So if Achashverosh sees from that nace that the Jews are going to be redeemed, how does he have the audacity and the chutzpah to take out the Kalim of the Beis HaMikdash after that? I mean, he's not stupid. He sees what happens to Belshazzar. So it's not just a matter, he got the wrong count, I'll get the right count. But if Belshazzar was killed, that means the Jews will be redeemed. Look at the Ramban. The Ramban says, Hadar min ba'agada, Belshazzar mana v'ta, ana manina v'loita'ina. I'll make a count and I won't make a mistake. V'amrina nami ba'achashverosh. We also say about Achashverosh, Kivan dechaza demalu shivin v'lai ifrak. Then when Achashverosh saw that the 70 years were over and he was not redeemed, Amar hashtavadai sula mifrakin. So what did he do? Apik mani devei miktasha, and he used it, and the Satan came in and Vashti was killed. Says Ramban, Kasha alai zeha inyan. I have a lot of questions over here. Kivan shera Achashverosh, de Belshazzar ta ben enash. If Achashverosh saw that Belshazzar made a mistake and he was punished, so isn't that clear indication the Jews will be redeemed? And the prophecy of Yirmiyah that everyone heard, what do you mean? Achashverosh says, he made a mistake and he was punished. I'll get the right cheshbon. Achashverosh, you shoyta shaba'olam. Hashem murdered Belshazzar. So why are you not afraid? Obviously the Jews are going to be redeemed. How could he rely on any cheshbon? Vaday asida davar liga v'yanish. He certainly is going to be punished. V'oid kashali. Heich amar kivan demalo shivin v'lai efraik. How could Achashverosh say, 70 years are over and the Jews were not redeemed? Achashverosh, they were redeemed. Who was the king before Achashverosh? Koresh. So the beginning of Sefer Ezra. How many Jews, Rabbi say, returned to Eretz Yisrael in the times of Koresh? 400,000. 42,000? Let's see what he says over here. Ba'oid kashali. Heich amar kivan demaloshim la ifrak v'haloi kfar ola barishin Koresh kol hakol ke'echad arba riboy. 40,000. Correct. 40,000. 40,000. Arba riboy. V'nis yashu ba'ara Yehuda. V'shuv loy alu b'binyan abayis. Elamuatim im Ezra. B'mitzvahs Daryavesh HaParsi. Anyway, look. Bottom line, even now, in the times of Daryavesh, how many Jews are going to return? Very, very, very few Jews. When did most Jews return? In the times of Koresh. So what's Achashverosh saying? The 70 years are over and the Jews are not redeemed. Yes, they are redeemed. The majority of Jews who are going to end up returning already returned before you, Achashverosh. They already started building the Beis HaMikdash. So what do you mean, I see they're not redeemed? They were redeemed. Right? V'shuv loy alu b'binyan abayis el mu'atim im Ezra b'mitzvahs dayavish ha-parsi v'noy shal chazos v'Esther. The third question. So question number one is, what's his cheshbon? Doesn't he see that the Jews are going to be redeemed? Number two, what's he saying? The Jews weren't redeemed; they were redeemed in the times of Koresh. And number three, heichi apik mani debei mikdusha. How can you take out the kelim of the Beis Hamikdash v'shtamish b'hu? There were no kelim. Koresh already returned all the kelim through Daniel. V'alav yimei Koresh kvar helu oisam kidachsiv, like the pasuk says. V'hamelach Koresh hoitzi es klei beis Hashem asher hoitzi nebuchadnezzar Yerushalayim vayitneim beveis elikav vayotziim Koresh melech paras al yedei misridas hagizbar vayisbareim l'sheish batzar hanasi lihuda uchsiv hakol hela sheish batzar im heolas hagami bal Yerushalayim. If you remember in Ezra, Perek Aleph, Psukim, we got to take a look. Zion, right? V'hamelach Koresh, King Koresh, hoitzi es kli beis Hashem. He took out the vessels of the house of Hashem. Asher hoitzi nebuchadnezzar Yerushalayim. Vayitneim beveis elikav. Vayotziim Koresh melech paras. And Koresh, the king of Paras, took them out through Mitzradas HaGizbar. Vayisbareim l'sheish batzar. So they already brought them up. So what's Achashverosh taking out the kelim? There were no kelim. All the kelim were already sent up through Koresh. So says the Ramban, let's say it outside a little bit first, and that is, Achashverosh was not sure what the Navi Yirmiyah meant. Did the Navi Yirmiyah mean the Jews will actually build the Beis HaMikdash? Or did the Navi Yirmiyah just mean the Jews will return, but they won't build the Beis HaMikdash? Because Yirmiyah didn't say they will build the Beis HaMikdash. What did Yirmiyah say? V'chumalais shivim shana lebavel efgoid eschem. Hashem says after 70 years I'll visit you. So maybe that visiting just meant the Jews will return to Eretz Yisrael. So Achashverosh says Belshazzar made a mistake. He thought the 70 years were over, and that's why he was punished. But I'm not going to make a mistake, because I see that yes, after 70 years, the Jews are not going to be redeemed by building the Beis HaMikdash. They're just going to return. So they returned. But they're not. But now I see all the return is just going back to Yerushalayim. But they're not going to actually have to build the Beis Hamikdash. So now I could use the kelim of the Beis Hamikdash. Achashverosh, it's not that he was a shaita. It's not that he said the Jews are not going to be redeemed. He says, I see they were redeemed, and that's all it is. All it is a return without a binyan Beis Hamikdash. Okay. And what about the question of where did he get the kelim from? So that we'll have to read. Take a look. The Yishloimar Ulataretz. Rabbi said, I'm going to make it a little easier for you. 1, 2. Look, you see that paragraph? Yishloimar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. On the 8th line, in the middle of the line, it says Ve'inyan HaKelim.
Yeah.
Ve'inyan HaKelim is a new paragraph. Okay, so make believe it's not one long piece. 2 different pieces here. Okay, well, let's see the first piece first. The Yishloimar Lataritz Shahaya Achashverosh Soiver, that Achashverosh held that Belshazzar mana v'ta, Belshazzar counted and he made a mistake. Benenash Lefisha b'yamav Asidin li'oslam pekida, because the truth is, in the times of Belshazzar, the Jews would have been remembered. Uchvar nifkadu. So Achashverosh says, but they were already remembered. In other words, Belshazzar's mistake was that the 70 years were not up yet. But Achashverosh says, in my days, the Jews will be remembered, and in fact they were. V'alu, v'ana manina v'loita'ina. I'm going to count. I'm not going to make a mistake. Ve'era, and I'm going to see im yalohem oid gu'ula acharas, if they will have a further redemption of actually building the Beis HaMikdash. Ubinyam Beis HaMikdash. V'kivan dechaza demalu l'cheshbainai nami. And when Achashverosh saw that the full 70 years were over, v'loi nivneh habayis, the Beis HaMikdash was not built. And they were not completely redeemed. Most of the great Jews were left behind in Bavel. The Rubam beBavel. Amar Sulay Mifraki. So then the Geula was, all the Geula is, a return of 40,000 Jews to Eretz Yisrael. The Navi Yirmiyah said they'll be visited. They were visited. They came back. 40,000 Jews came back, and they have a little shtetl over there. and everything that I heard that the Navi said to them, Hakol b'bifkudasa shel Koresh. It all occurred through the Pekida of Koresh. Ve'aleha haya ansha shel Belshazzar. That's why Belshazzar was punished, because he needed to wait until the Pekida of Koresh. But I waited for the Pekida of Koresh, and nothing more is going to happen. Now the question is, where did Achashverosh get the Kalim from? Right, new paragraph, yeah? Be'inyan ha-Kalim halalu, sh'Achashverosh nishtamish b'hem haya. Where did Achashverosh get these Kalim from? Lefisha Nebuchadnezzar begalas harishain. Lokach mikzas Kalim shabeis hamikdash. Nebuchadnezzar in the first galos, this was galos Yehoyakim, 19 years before the Churban, I believe. Galos of Yehoyakim. Rabbi said, when was the Galus of Yehoyakim? The Galus of...
The guy with the big truck at the base of the driveway. Someone's just trying to get into the driveway. Just like pull back for 2 seconds.
Okay.
So sorry.
So,
thank you.
According to this account, in the year 3326, Yehoyakim was exiled, and some of the Kalim were taken away. The next year, Yehoyachin was exiled with some of the Kalim, and 11 years later, the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, and Tzidkiyahu was exiled also with some of the Kalim. So the Kalim was taken away really 3 times. Galus Yehoyakim, a year later, Galus Yehoyachin, and 11 years later, Tzidkiyahu. Okay? So, says the Ramban, the Inyan HaKelim, Halal Shachshosh Nashasham Hayil Fishan Nebuchadnezzar Begalas Harishan Lakach Mixas Kelim Shabeis Hamikdash V'loi Kulam T'chsiv Ayitain Hashem V'yadayis Yehoyakim Melech Yehuda U'Mixas Klei Beis Holikim V'yiviyim Eretz Shinar Beis Holikav V'yes HaKelim Hevi Beis Oitzel Holikav. He brought the Kelim to the storehouse. V'heim Hayu Sheshalach Koresh B'Mayla Rishayna. The Kelim Nebuchadnezzar took in Galus Yehoyakim, Koresh sent back immediately. T'chsiv Ayitneim Beis Holikav V'yotziim Koresh L'fishin Esmal Lehem Ayin Shana. You ready? Listen to what the Ramban is saying. For every set of Kelim that were taken, each set had to be in Galus for 70 years. So first Nebuchadnezzar sent out some Kalim for Yehoyakim, then some Kalim with Yehoyachin, and then some Kalim with Tzidkiyahu. So when Koresh comes to power, he immediately returned the Kalim Nebuchadnezzar sent to Bavel in year 1. Koresh sent those Kalim back immediately, because those Kalim had already done their 70 years. But the other Kalim that were not exiled until 12 years later, in the times of Tzidkiyahu, those Kalim were not returned until Daryavish II, when the Jews rebuilt the second Beis Hamikdash. So when in the times of Achashverosh, he still had access to some of the Kalim because Koresh had not sent all of the Kalim back yet. He says, like this: V'heim hayu sheshalach Koresh v'mayla harishayna. These are the Kalim Koresh sent back in the first return. But the rest of the vessels, Nisharu b'Beis Hamikdash, they remained in the Beis Hamikdash ad hachorban, until the Chorban Beis Hamikdash. The Lakach Oisam Nevuzradin took them in the times of the Chorban. Mekrois Malayim Heim b'Sefer Yirmiyahu. The Psukim in Sefer Yirmiyah are full of this. The Heimloy Nismalu Lahem Adayin Shivim Shana. But those Kalim that were taken in times of the Chorban, they had not yet done their 70 years. V'Nisharu b'Bavel, and they remained in Bavel ad Binyan Habayis, until the Beis Hamikdash was built. Niskayim b'Kalim Mash Niskayim b'Beis Hamikdash Uva'am Hagoylam. In other words, like this: there were 3 exiles. There was exile Yehoyakim, there were exile Yehoyachin, and exile Tzidkiyahu. Each one of those exiles were in exile for 70 years, and the Kalim that were taken with each one of those exiles were also in Galus 70 years, and they also returned in stages. So we asked if Koresh sent back the Kalim, how did Achashverosh have Kalim to use? So Ramban is saying Koresh only sent back the Kalim that were taken during the first wave. He says, Tchila nifkadu l'shivim shel galus rishon. V'hagoyim b'shas chorban. Those who were exiled in times of the chorban Beis Hamikdash nigalu la'ayin shel chorban. They were redeemed 70 years after the chorban. V'chein habinyin. And likewise the building lamalos shivim l'chorban habayis, to complete the 70 years of the chorban haya. Uva oisayzman. And when they went to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, heshivu shara kelim, the other kelim were returned. Devadei nigalu v'chsiram, like Yirmiyah prophesied. Al hakelim hanesum Beis Hashem bavela yuvo. Yirmiyah said they'll be brought to Bavel v'shama yu ad yom pakti oisam num Hashem, and they returned to their place.
Does it work for people too?
What?
Does it work for people who were exiled in different stages?
Did they also have to be in Galus 70 years, 70 years, 70 years? Maybe. It's mashma like that in the Ramban. But I don't know for sure. Okay, so this is how the Ramban learns. That
the first wave is when Koresh gave permission, he sent the Caleb, right?
the first wave of return.
Yeah, so the first wave of humans came back.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, Galus Yehoyakim was when?
3326. Went to Rashi.
What?
Went to Rashi, it's 3326.
Now, Koresh was 18 years, I think, before the building of the second Beis Hamikdash. So the first Kalim were exiled when? In the times of Yehoyakim. How many years was that before?
12.
So how does that fit with the 70 years?
70 years would have been 3396.
In other words, 3326 Yehoyakim was taken to exile, 3327 Yehoyachin, and 3338. So altogether we're only dealing with 12 years in between the three waves. But I believe that Koresh, when he gave word for the Jews to return, I believe that was 18 years before the Beis Hamikdash was actually built. Okay, Rabbi Sai, so I'll let you think about that. Have a great day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.